So you can find me on any one of those social platforms. And also you can find me on Slack. I've been lucky enough to join one of your groups, the primary secondary schools group, and it's been really interesting to meet some different people that I wouldn't necessarily have engaged with without jumping onto the platform. So it was tricky to navigate at first because it wasn't something that I was familiar with, and technology, there are so many new things and it's changing all the time, but the benefit of joining these different groups is you put out of your comfort zone, but you also put into a little bubble where you're with and amongst people who are like-minded to yourself, where you can start thinking and probing and talking about topics of interest that might sit on your peripheral but have connections to the work that you're doing. So I've enjoyed that. I'm only a fairly new member to the Slack group, but I've started investigating a few different other rooms to be involved in, and it's just great to see the different groups and the different ecosystems that sit within those groups as well. So I feel lucky. Thanks for creating the whole thing. It's amazing, and it's a great opportunity for people to jump on.
Well, and thanks for being a part of it. What I might do, I might just share a screen real quick for people that may not be familiar with what that looks like. If I can get this hopped over. So for those who don't know, for the uninitiated, we have a Slack community. This is for the Australian innovation community, and specifically leaders in that community who are helping other people to build, grow, and scale their business. But one of the things we identified about 6 weeks ago as the COVID-19 impacts were unfolding is how do we help those who help other people? And so what we've done is we've created a Slack group, a Slack platform, as it were, with different channels. And these channels that you see down the left kind of reflect the detail of what we might find in the innovation ecosystem, as we refer to it. So we have like industry sectors from agriculture or defense or mining. We have different roles in the ecosystem, from accelerator programs, co-working, and government. And we also have different community groups or community focus areas, such as Indigenous or gender, and then just general community ones like just general or random, those kind of things. And so what we find is, as you mentioned, is that people kind of find their homes, their rooms, which they have a bit of a chat about. And then we come through here, and one of the ones that you're particularly having a bit of a yarn in, that you first engaged with, Liz, is around schools. And the thing is, like when you came in, I'm so grateful. So even though I appreciate the gratitude as far as setting it up, but I'm just as grateful for people like you who come in and they say, look, let's talk about this, because I'm definitely not the one. I went to school. I've lectured in schools before, but I don't know it nearly the depth that you do. And so to be able to have the conversations to start the engagement. And we see some really interesting chats in here, like, as Viv, put in here and started talking about different mindsets, which sparked this whole conversation with people. And this actually inspired the session that we're having this Thursday. And that's what we find, is that the digital community then inspires physical connections, which then inspire real outcomes. So, and maybe just a frank conversation, Liz, like what was your experience when you first came into this, and how did you kind of find your way through?
I guess I was really nervous at first because I was quite overwhelmed with the options. And so when I first joined, I was like, oh, I can see so much value in all of these things. But the most important part, I thought, was to start contributing, because once you start sharing, you're a part of that culture of sharing, connecting with people who are really trying hard to put their thoughts out there. And once you start commenting, that's where you start creating a conversation around really important topics. And sometimes I don't read too much with what's going on in the news, and I try and stick to certain types of articles or research or certain sites, but it's taken me out of my comfort zone. It's opened my eyes to understanding about, different areas and what they're going through at the moment. And you've got quite a large group of people coming together who may not necessarily sit in the category of secondary schools, but they're contributing to the success of that environment or that sector. So it's great to to just sit there and have a read and just take it in to start with, and then start contributing, start writing. I always get told, just start writing. And once you do that, the conversations then flow, and then you start really connecting with other people. And I find the real value of this is meeting new people.
Yeah. And I appreciate it. And even, again, your conversation has been great to then inspire other people to connect. And it is always that, it's like that video that you see of the first follower. It always sees that one person kind of dancing crazy, and the other person comes along. Pretty soon you have a whole bunch of people that really know how to dance. But it's that one person that was kind of awkward. And I often feel like that. I have no idea. Like I'm about the worst dancer you can see. And sometimes even when I'm writing, I'm like, oh, I just got to get it out there. But then when people like you come along and kind of contribute in your area of expertise, I'm like, yes, everybody else can follow then.
Well, I think it's quite safe, because I feel like it's a really nice environment to feel free to ask questions. And so I quite often read and somebody's mentioned something. I'm like, oh, what are your thoughts about that? And then people start sharing their thoughts and their opinions. And I always talk to students about sharing and not being afraid to talk about what your point of view and your perspective is, because it allows you an opportunity to learn and gather more information and make even more informed decisions as you move along. And because of what's going on at the moment, where everything is going online, there is such a wealth of knowledge and information out there that I would not have engaged with if it weren't given the COVID-19 pandemic. I just would not have sat down and really spent the time going through all of these things. I might pick up an article and read one or two sentences or a few paragraphs to pick up, a summary of what it's talking about. But now I'm really engaging really deep in the research and reading what other people are contributing, and it's giving me time to understand who they are, where they're coming from. And I think that's really important when you engage with people. It's understanding who they are as people and what they want to contribute to the world. And again, that comes back to the Sustainable Development Goals in, what are we all doing to try and contribute to the success of, our planet and future prosperity. And for me, it's knowledge sharing and knowledge creation. So I really value that. And I love being able to dip into other areas that I'm not necessarily as knowledgeable in. I love the agricultural space. So it's really interesting to learn about all the technologies and the changes that are going on in those different spaces. So I highly encourage people to just get on there and have a look and not be afraid to get involved and have a conversation. It doesn't matter how long you sit dormant on there, but I've been a part of a lot of websites or a lot of pages where quite often I never contribute, and I get a little bit disappointed in myself, and it certainly gets you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. That's fantastic feedback, and it is really validation for kind of what we're intending to do. Because part of the other thing of getting just those little news bites in there is trying to raise awareness of people that may stay in the innovation space and the entrepreneur support space, but kind of broaden that awareness into maybe traditional economic development, economic diversification, some of the kind of the more broad understanding, which then hopefully will inform their work. And it's that cross-section of ideas. It is agriculture, cross-section with school, connection with resources and maybe technology and all these different domains, and getting that cross-section. So that's really good feedback and validation. And we also have these daily polls as well. Sometimes, deep and meaningful based on the news of the day, sometimes on a weekend, hey, we've got maybe 1 or 2 weekends left of lockdown. What are you going to watch? What are you going to binge on Netflix while you do, which is today's topic. I'm really kind of keen to see who gets up on top there. But
it's a mix of fun. It's fun. When I had a look at those, I was like, oh, okay, I never even really thought about that. So I'll have to check those ones, the daily recaps, out a bit more frequently, I think.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for your feedback, getting to know a little bit more about you, and obviously thanks heaps for being a part of the Slack community. And I am very much looking forward to our chat next week, where we have a bit of a yarn around how do we fundamentally change entrepreneurship in high schools. I'm also very excited about this one because this actually represents a bit of a shift in what we're doing with the Slack channel, in that now we're going to go from just general conversations around community, and out of this we're going to start spinning up project teams where we're going to get thought leaders across Australia who are working on this topic. We're going to say, okay, if we were going to make a fundamental change in 6 months collectively, acknowledging we need to work with government, work with schools, work with service providers, work with investors, work with corporates, who do we need around the table? Who's already doing it? And how do we support the work? And how do we track the fundamental shift over 6-month cycles? And so we're going to start doing that in different domains. Do it with schools, do it with female entrepreneurship, Indigenous entrepreneurship and digital enablement, government procurement and innovation activities. So all of these topics that come up, there's like, a dozen thought leaders across Australia who are passionate about that thing. So how do we get those people in a room? So that's what we're going to be doing, and really excited to have you on the panel to start that conversation next Thursday.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chad. I really appreciate it. And also huge kudos to you. It's been really amazing and exciting to watch you build the ecosystems and actually identify people who fall in those categories. And it's been really helpful for me in learning and growing and understanding more myself, because for me, no one person is bigger than a collective effort. So if we're all working on the same mission and we're all doing it in silos, it doesn't have as much of an impact. So what you're doing is you're taking it one step further and you're giving people the platform to want to connect and to take action. And I'm really excited to be part of that, and I feel really grateful. So looking forward to that. And I'm also looking forward to helping with identifying who's in our ecosystem in secondary schools, or who works with secondary schools, so that we can start identifying who the change makers are and the movers and the shakers in that area too. So thanks again for that, Chad. I really appreciate your time.
Awesome, thank you. And just on the note of collection, I do have to give a shout out to everybody else who's a part of it. From Di Somerville, who's helping me with the community aspect, Kaylee Norman over in WA, and Andrew Athway over in WA, who helped inspire a lot of this to begin with. It really is, we have a kind of a brains trust working towards this thing. And I myself am inspired by people like you and everybody. Like, it is definitely a community and group effort, but I really appreciate the gratitude, and thanks for your time.
You're so welcome.